Do you want to spend $1,400 flying coach next to someone's emotional support iguana on Christmas Eve? Or maybe you want to sleep in a rental car next to an airport vending machine. Flights are already filling up for the holidays, and prices are rising faster than your December stress levels. And yes, the cute little cabin in the woods that was going to give you that perfect Currier and Ives Christmas picture, somebody else already booked that back in March. This episode is your holiday meltdown avoidance plan, and we are chatting about where to go, what to book, when to pull the trigger. By the way, it's now, and how to actually enjoy the holidays instead of just surviving them.
We have hit some big milestones on our podcast, and we could not have done it without all of you who are listening, who are reviewing us and commenting, who've joined our Facebook group. If you haven't done those things yet, please join our Facebook group. We have lots of like-minded travel people who love talking about the episodes and what's going on in travel. Please leave us a review. It's a great way to get some visibility to the podcast, and continue joining us every week as we talk about all sorts of travel. If you have something specific you want us to cover, leave us a comment in the Facebook group. That's probably the easiest way. But we are always looking for some ideas, and we're starting to look for guests too.
Since it's Christmas in July, we are going to play a little game of this or that and talk about what our Christmas preferences are. So, Jodi, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah.
Real tree or palm tree on a beach?
Okay. So I have an artificial tree at home anyway. I don't get a real tree.
We do
Due
too.
to, the pet situation. But I'm going to go with a hybrid because we like to travel either the end of the day on Christmas or the day after Christmas. So I
Hmm.
kind of like to celebrate, get that holiday, get our Christmas ham and all of our presents and all of the holiday spirit, and then get out. So I kind of like to do a palm tree and an artificial tree. And
Yeah,
what
we
about
have
you?
lived that life.
Yeah.
We have gotten up early Christmas morning, done the present swap, the Christmas breakfast, the whole thing. And then by noon, we're taking the tree down because we're leaving like super early the next morning. So I do kind of like a hybrid. I also really always loved DVC, Disney Vacation
Oh
Club.
yeah.
We used to do villas over the Christmas holidays, and Jim and I would go down a couple of days ahead of time, and we would like go to our favorite meat market, do all the stuff, do all the decorating. And then by the time the whole family came, we had the Christmas ham and everything. So it was sort of like combining the best of both worlds. But I feel like I still need the best of both worlds. I need the
Yeah.
traditions in the home, and then I still need the palm tree on the beach kind of a thing. All right, Airbnb for the holidays or a resort?
Always a resort for me. Vacation homes are great, but I love hotels. That's always been what I've loved. So
Yeah, same here. It feels like more of a vacation. And, when you go to an Airbnb, it's just somebody else's house without Christmas decorations. At least if you go to a
right,
resort, you've got all the festivity of Christmas.
right. And sometimes you've got
Okay.
gingerbread houses, and you've got
Yes.
trees and presents and lights, and yeah, and then you don't
I
have to take it down, right? You can enjoy it.
Yeah, I love all
You
of
can
that
take
stuff.
photos in front of it, and then yeah.
Yes. Okay. Cook your own Christmas dinner or you eat out.
Well, I don't do either. Someone else cooks, but I'm more of a like bake and bring something to my parents and my in-laws. But yeah, I'm more of a like let's eat at home on the holiday.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to eat at home. I like the house when it smells like Christmas ham. I don't know why. I'm not even like a huge fan of ham. I just love
Oh,
that
nice.
lingering smell. Yeah, it smells like Christmas to me.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, it's Christmas vacation. Snow boots or flip-flops?
Always flip-flops. I think I've talked about this before when we talked about Alaska, right? I don't like cold weather, so yeah. If I can take advantage of some warm weather, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, I kind of flop on this one. I go back and forth. I love the feeling that snow and cold weather gives you at Christmas time, but I don't like to be in it. I just want to stay inside. So
Right.
with that in mind, I'd rather go somewhere nice and warm for Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to get into skiing. I figured if I was like really into it, people who love to ski, like they enjoy winter. I thought maybe I could like force myself to enjoy winter,
Yeah.
but I don't enjoy skiing and I still don't enjoy winter. So,
Yeah, I feel that in the center of my heart. I feel it.
So you may be wondering, why are we talking about Christmas in July? And we are not talking about Christmas festivities in July. We are talking about planning your Christmas vacation in July if you haven't already. And that is because this is a very, very popular time to travel. It is an expensive time to travel. And if you haven't booked the things that you need to book, things like hotels or resorts and flights, now is really the time you're going to want to do that. And, I think it's kind of a combination of people who want to visit family at Christmas, but also because that is a really great break or a great opportunity when you have time off that you can travel.
Yeah.
So, we're going to
Yeah.
start out by talking, why is Christmas travel so much more complicated than a normal vacation?
Yeah, and you hit on a bunch of them. There are just so many more people traveling. It is so much more expensive for even the smallest things, everything from flights to hotel rooms. You might have a favorite hotel that you go to a couple times a year, but at Christmas you can expect the price to be double, maybe even
Right,
triple.
right,
Logistically, it just takes so much more time and effort to book everything and to make everything work. Even determining where you want to go, like, do you want to just go grandmom's house and spend a couple of nights there, or do you want grandmom to come to the beach in Florida or on a cruise or to
right,
another destination? So with all of your holiday traditions, there's just a lot more that goes into planning everything. And budgeting is going to be super important now because, like I said, everything is more expensive and you're not going to find a lot of travel discounts like you might find over the summer. Kids eat free, or
right.
you get in free, or, free third person or fourth person on a cruise ship. You don't usually find those over the holidays. So budgeting for your holiday vacation has to start now.
Right. And that gets us into kind of the next question, which is like, what are the consequences that you're going to face if you decide to do this, you know,
Yeah.
after now or at the last minute?
Yeah. So the big one for me, especially, is horrible, horrible flights. The closer you get to the holidays, the harder it's going to be to find a price at a time that you want to travel, a
Right.
time that you want to arrive at your destination, something that has seats available, especially if you're traveling with a family and you know that you're going to need 3 or 4 or 5 seats kind of close to each other. You don't want to like leave at 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve. And then by the time you get where you're going, like all the Christmas Eve festivities are gone. So you really have to start doing that planning now. Even if you're just planning to go to family, if you don't start looking at those flights now and getting all of those arrangements in place, by the time you get to your Christmas celebration with your family, all the good Christmas cookies are gone. They've already eaten Christmas dinner. The times that you're going to get stuck with are really kind of crummy.
Now, how do you choose your destination, and where are some of the places that you've traveled around the holidays?
So we've done cruises, we've done Disney, we've definitely gone to visit family. We used to live in Florida and my whole family was still up here in New Jersey. So there were a lot of years where we left Florida just to come home to New Jersey. But the best place to start with is your budget and how much time you have to go away. Because even
Mm,
though the kids probably have at least a week, maybe 2 weeks off, you may not have that much vacation time. So
right.
how much time can you afford to go away? And are we going to prioritize going to visit your family or going on a nice trip with your family?
Right.
So if you can put your family aside for a week and you want to go somewhere nice and warm, like you do, you want flip flops, your feet in the sand, you have the vacation budget and the financial budget to make that happen. So this is the time where you really have to do some soul searching and try and figure out, am I going to disappoint grandmom who's not going to see the grandkids on Christmas morning, open their gifts because we're going to be sitting on a beach in Puerto Rico? You really have to decide what your priorities are. And if your dream trip is going to Walt Disney World, but you don't like crowds, you've really got to do some gut check and say,
Yeah.
maybe we have to do the dream trip another time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've traveled the day of like Christmas Day because we do our Christmas meal early.
Hmm.
And, that timing has been a good like compromise. But the airport was, I mean, half the restaurants were closed. The
Yeah.
flights were delayed. It was like a residual effect throughout the day. There was no seating. People were just sitting on luggage. I mean, eventually we got there. Our luggage did not, but it was a compromise where we didn't have
Yeah.
to miss the holiday. So Yeah,
Yeah. And all of
there's a
that,
lot of thinking.
like you have to really take that in mind, and not just the week of Christmas, but you have to start thinking about it now. Like, am I going to be able to find a restaurant if I'm on the road traveling Christmas Eve? Is everything going to be closed at 2 o'clock? So I'm, not going to find some place to grab a bite to eat if I'm, running late on the highway or
Right,
something like that. Like you have to take all of that into
right.
consideration now and make your plans.
Um, are there some underrated Christmas destinations? Some places like under the radar?
For sure. And, this is mostly for people that want that like stereotypical Christmas feeling. And I immediately went to a place that you brought up in a previous episode when we talked about travel dupes, Quebec City. I mean, it's literally right out of a Charles Dickens novel. You
Yeah.
have, the European style Christmas market there. You have the cold air. It's just kind of a very festive holiday vibe if you're looking for like that old school, let's go back to traditional Christmas. Also, if Europe is in your budget, both time and money, Prague or Budapest are great places to go for that real like traditional Christmas feeling. If you just want to stay here in the United States, we have so many mountain areas or
Mhm.
rustic places that you could go. I mean, Maine, Asheville, North Carolina, some of the Colorado resort areas. So there are places that not a ton of people are going to flock to because they're not, the beach destinations or Paris or London, something that's big on your vacation bucket list, but they're just places that give you that very Christmassy, old fashioned Saint Nick sort of a feeling.
Yeah, and I think like what we've been talking about is really traveling for Christmas, but there are some places that you can go before Christmas that have like Christmas celebrations, right? Like Nantucket has a Christmas stroll. Grapevine, Texas, which you wouldn't necessarily think of, is it's a suburb of Dallas Fort Worth. They're like the Christmas capital of Texas. They have, parades and all sorts
Yeah.
of festivals. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of
But
options if you
even
travel
those
on.
things, yeah, like now is the time to plan for those.
Right,
And, it's not Christmas week. It might be the whole month of December,
right.
but because those are such community events and big, festivals that people are aware of, people will book hotels from year to year to year. Like, I'm going to go to Nantucket every year for the Christmas stroll, or I'm going to go to
Right.
Texas every year. So they book the same hotels, they're in the same restaurants, and stuff will sell out and book up now.
Yeah, and especially if you're talking about something like Nantucket where you also have to book a ferry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You get there and you've got everything in place, and then you can't get to the actual festival.
So that brings us up to like, you know, obviously we've talked about the prices. How do you budget for this trip without really, you know, the holidays are already an expensive time of year, right? How do you
Yeah.
add on a vacation and a pricey vacation on top of that?
Yeah, I mean it can be difficult, but my biggest recommendation is to make the trip your holiday gift. I have a really good friend. She has two little kids, and since they were very, very little, their gift to the children was an experience. They would go to New York and see a show or do, ice skating, or they would go to a mountain retreat or something. But they did very basic Christmas gifts like your holiday pajamas, some of your like toiletries, toothbrushes,
Hmm.
stuff like that, maybe a new winter coat. But the gift for the family was the trip. And you can really do that with everybody. Like,
Yeah.
let's say you usually go to grandmom's and you're going to spend, 200 or $300 on a gift for grandmom. Even if you're only going to spend $50 on a gift for grandmom, you can take everybody to dinner during a family vacation, or you can do something like that. So make the gift part of your vacation. The other thing that helps is to split everything up based on categories. Have a category for airfare, for
Hmm.
hotels, for food, for admissions to the things that you want to do or see while you're there. And then you have a better chance of sticking to that budget and also moving pieces around. Like if you know that your airfare budget is, let's say, $300 per person, but you luck into an airfare sale and you get flights for $200 a person, you can take that $100 and put it into something else. Now, whether that something else is actually buying physical gifts for the people that you're not going to see, or putting it into your food budget, or now you're going to do like a trolley cart tour that you didn't have budgeted for, but now you've got the extra money. Just keep
Hmm.
everything categorized, and you can move stuff around as you save things, or maybe find that stuff is costing you a little more money.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right, so now when do we book all of the different components to this trip?
Right this very minute now. I say this both as a stressed vacationer and a travel agent. Start looking around now. Airline tickets and hotels, you definitely want to have those at least on your radar by midsummer. End of June,
Yeah,
beginning of July, you really want to start nailing that stuff down. I also use a variety of flight trackers just to see if anybody is recommending that I wait until closer to the holiday. They almost never do.
right.
Honestly, for the holidays, the earlier you buy things, the better the chance of getting everything that you want. And the same goes for hotel rooms. The same is true of cruises. If you want a certain
Yeah,
category of stateroom, don't wait until the last minute. You know that Disney World is going to be busy. You know that New York City is going to be hopping. You want to make sure that you have the resort or the hotel that you want so that you're not scrambling at the last minute taking whatever is left. And let me just tell you this, the taking whatever's left does not necessarily mean you're going to be in like a flea bag motel somewhere. It generally means that you're going to be stuck paying ridiculous prices for suites that you maybe didn't want, or a higher category of stateroom on a cruise ship that you didn't want, because all of the more reasonably priced stuff is selling out.
right.
If you are a fly by the seat of your pants kind of traveler, and I'm speaking directly to my husband when I say this, even on a road trip, this is not the time to wing it. My husband has no problem getting in a car in New Jersey and driving to Florida and just hoping that a hotel will be available along the way. This is not the time to do that. Have your strategy in place. Think about where you might stop if you're on a road trip, where you're going to be overnight, and book those rooms now, because you
Yeah,
can't rely on them being available when you just stop.
yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, obviously, airfare is either non-refundable or, not refundable in cash typically. But hotels often are, you can often book them, but sometimes those policies are different during the holidays.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that you need to look out for, is that sometimes when you book something during these really busy dates, you know, blackout dates apply for deals that you may typically have gotten, and suddenly you may be looking at something that is not refundable that maybe during most of the year is.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, you may be so used to traveling, maybe at a Marriott or another hotel where you know that there's a 48 or 72-hour cancellation window. But when you're looking at Christmas, it may be a 5-day vacation,
Right,
cancellation
right.
window, and, you're going to end up losing money. And, you also want to start, you don't necessarily have to book stuff now, and you may not be able to book stuff now, but if there are special meals you want to do, special shows you want to see, if there
Right.
are festivals or holiday events that are going to be very popular, you can generally start to look at the end of August into September and start booking those things. So
Yeah.
even those are right around the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're booking this for the whole family, like how do you organize this? How do you kind of coordinate who's taking care of what responsibilities?
So you don't assign my husband anything, because it won't get done. And if it gets done, it will be the very last minute and everybody will be stressed that it's not done. But you also don't want to do this all by yourself, especially if you've got a big family. You can use shared docs, like, Google Docs or whatever. Make sure everybody is on WhatsApp or some kind of group text or group chat so that everybody kind of knows what's going on, and then assign people that are going to be reliable and responsible to do different things, like have somebody look into the hotel rooms, have somebody to look into the events and the activities. If you're going on a cruise, maybe consider going through a travel agent that will book you a group space so that you're kind of all doing the same thing. You have special amenities that are booked or built into that for you. You definitely want to look at group space at a hotel if you're going to be a bigger group. And there are definitely benefits. If you are a big group, you might be able to get like a complimentary hospitality suite.
Right.
Some cruise lines will give you tour conductor credits. So if you have a big group going on a cruise, you may get a discount or even free passenger fare for cruises. But you cannot do this all by yourself, especially if it's a big group. I mean, I'm taking 7 people to Europe next week, and I don't know how we're doing it. This is a fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing. My daughter and I are kind of bouncing ideas back and forth off of each other. Did you book this? Did you book that? Do we have this? Are we good here? Literally just booked transportation from the airport and from the hotel to the port less than a week ago. We left that to my husband. That's why that didn't get done sooner. But yeah, you want to make sure that the people that you're giving tasks to can handle them, but don't try and tackle it all on your own. Divvy that stuff out, dole out the different responsibilities, and let now's the time to let people pitch in.
And I'm just going to throw out here too, because obviously this wouldn't help you, but using a travel agent for these things, like Anna, can be very helpful because you would know if a group rate is a better opportunity. Like there are things that you know that maybe someone else wouldn't know.
Yeah, and I have had people in the past ask me about, taking groups to Disney, and the first thing they're always surprised about is there's not Christmas week any kind of like a big discount for
Right,
going to Disney with 15 of your family and
right,
friends.
right.
There's not a ticket discount. So, even though you have a big group, you may not get a discount. So, let a travel agent work you through where the best use of your budget is.
Absolutely. And on that note, what are some travel hacks that will make traveling easier, especially during like a busy time like this?
I think most of my travel hacks I learned from Jodi. TSA PreCheck is definitely going to come in handy during the busy holiday season or global entry. It can be a game changer, especially at a busy airport if you're flying into or out of someplace like New York or Orlando, where on a good regular day, the security lines can be an hour long or longer. You definitely will find TSA PreCheck global entry, those kinds of programs. Those are enormous helps. Also, ship stuff ahead of time. Almost every hotel will accept a package for you. So if you insist on bringing your holiday festival with you, whether you're bringing a tree or presents or whatever, don't stress about having to pack it in suitcases that will go on an airplane because you're going to run into an overweight bag fee or over the limit bag fee or whatever. Ship that stuff down ahead of time. They'll have it there for you. And when you get there, you're done with the stress. You don't have to worry about it fitting in the car or paying for it to get on an airplane. And the other thing also from Jodi, use digital tools like TripIt, which has an itinerary planning tool that will help you kind of keep all of your ducks in a row, keep all of your planning neat and organized, and kind of just alleviate some of the stress that you're going to have because it's Christmas vacation and it's traveling in December when everybody else is traveling. But
Right.
if we can help you minimize that, I think all of these tools are good.
Yeah, I'm going to just throw out two other things. One is that don't wrap packages and then put them in your carry-on bag.
Yeah.
I see this a lot when I'm in the security line where, and the TSA, I have seen them try to be very gentle with the opening of these packages, but they do frequently have to open them. And if it's busy, they're not going to be as able to be taking their time. And the second one I want to add, you mentioned TSA PreCheck and global entry. A lot of people ask me about Clear. I use Clear. It is not particularly cheap. And so I wouldn't recommend it necessarily for like someone who goes on one trip a year, but if you do frequently travel to and from airports that have Clear, and you want to look at the gates, not only the airport, because something like Boston International Airport, where I fly out of, has Clear in Terminal B, but doesn't in Terminal C. So, take a look at it, but Clear can be kind of a game changer when it comes to skipping lines. So, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for one trip, but if you are someone who travels frequently, that's another one to look at.
Yeah, I resisted TSA PreCheck for a really long time because we do a lot of driving. We don't do or we didn't do a lot of flying. But I found even with like minimal flying, it's super, super helpful. And when
Yeah,
I've got grandkids with me, it is so helpful not to have to take my shoes off and take stuff out of my bags
right,
and do all
right.
of that stuff while I'm trying to keep them all corralled in one place. So
Absolutely.
even if you don't fly super, super often, it can really come in handy. But over the holidays, it's going to be a lifesaver.
Right. And if you have global entry, you do not need TSA PreCheck because it
Yeah.
covers it, but the opposite is not true. So just keep that in mind.
Mail call, question stories, let's hear it all.
if you have any questions on traveling over the holidays or any other questions, you can leave us a comment, you can email us, or the best way really is to bring it up in the Facebook group. In the meantime, we are going to take some questions that we've received from other episodes. And the first one is if it's worth volunteering for voluntary bumping on a flight. What do you think? Have you ever done this, Anna?
Yeah. So I may let you give us a really good answer to this question because I am such a nervous flyer. I do not, and I get so tempted because you'll
Right.
log in and you'll get, you could get up to $500 if you switch your flights. I'm such a panic traveler that as appealing as that is to me sometimes, I just can't do it. My husband, however, he would do it in a heartbeat. If we didn't have any specific time or destination,
Yeah.
like you've got to be here by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, he would do it every time. And I have been with him where we voluntarily bumped a couple of us and let a couple more go on. For us, it ended up being a complete disaster. I was with my stepmom who, because we bumped ourselves, we went and got something to eat. Somewhere along the way, she left all of her documentation, her
Oh
passport,
no.
her boarding passes, left all of the stuff somewhere. We retraced all of her steps through the airport. We couldn't find it. They reprinted her boarding pass, so that was not a big deal. And she had her driver's license in her wallet, which definitely helped. But now the next day we are at the cruise port and we're literally praying. We were lucky enough that her sister was home and was able to access an old copy of her passport and sent us a photocopy, which God bless Disney. Do not rely on this to work because this will not work. God bless Disney. They let her on the ship. So that has left for me a bad taste in my mouth for bumping. So have you
Yeah.
had good experience with it or do you do it?
So I've never done it. I will say, like, if you are checking in on the app, the day before, or you get to the airport and you go to the kiosk, often that's not a guarantee that they're going to bump you. It's kind of like
Right.
a, hey, if we need to bump somebody, are you volunteering? So that uncertainty can be difficult because you have to basically assume that you've not been bumped, right? You still
Yeah.
need to get to the airport, to go through the gate, to be prepared. In my opinion, if I've gotten that far, I'm in it now, right? I want to
Mm,
just get to where I'm
yeah.
going. However, I think that if you are flexible and you don't, maybe you're, especially if you're at your destination where you're like, hey, I would have enjoyed another day here, it might be worth it to do, just keeping in mind that you may have to sit and wait until that flight boards to see if they need you to bump. The other thing I would do is just make sure that it's not going to cost you. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, you had to go get some food. If you now have to pick up the dog a day later, if you have to find another place to stay, it can be very inconvenient. So just kind of weigh all of that. But, if you're super flexible and you don't mind, it can be a great way to kind of get, some more travel budget.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just going to ask you, so how do you know if the airline is offering some kind of a change waiver of, like the fees are going to be waived if there's predicted bad weather?
Yeah, and we see this a lot in the Northeast. If there's a storm that's being forecast for some sort of snow event, typically if you have a flight booked, you will get an email from the airline, or if you go on their website, you'll see they typically will put like a banner at the top saying, storm expected. If you're going to change, or if you start to notice, I always recommend that people who are traveling just keep an eye on the weather, both at the
Yeah.
destination. Well, I should say at where you're leaving from, where you're going, and if it's a road trip along the way. But what I will say is that keep an eye on this as soon as possible because your option to switch flights will
Hmm.
be better early. And sometimes I've had this happen where there's going to be a bad snowstorm. I'm like, hey, I want to get there a day early. If there's a cruise or something, no change fee, you make that change as quick as possible. So yeah, they will typically let you know that. But if it's something that you're really concerned about, keep an eye on their website and then take advantage of it as soon as you can.
Yeah, I like that airlines, especially if there's some impending bad weather, they really do seem to go out of their way to kind of be a little bit more flexible with you and not charge all the fees and stuff. And, we've a couple times been planning to go to Florida or to, on a cruise or whatever. And they've notified us right away, like, if you need to change, we're waiving all the fees and everything. And it,
Right.
it just takes the stress off of you. You don't have to worry about, should I go? Am I going to lose the money? How am I getting this back? So it's a
Yeah,
good thing.
and I know you, I don't believe you were with us on this cruise, but there was a cruise I did in January. And luckily, we were cruising to Key West on the day that my flight had changed because being in Key West, I was able to use my phone. And the airline, I think we were supposed to arrive on a Saturday or a Sunday, and I was flying out, and we ended up not, my flight got canceled, and I was rebooked for a Wednesday, which was like 4 days later.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I kept calling the airline, and basically what happened after kind of this long process is that the storm ended up not be like they basically canceled these flights way too prematurely. And so I just went to the airport, and while I was on the way to the airport, they suddenly added this flight to Boston,
Oh,
and I was able to get on it. So, and I kind of learned that that was going to be an option by being very, very friendly to the JetBlue person I
yeah.
spoke to. She said it's a possibility they'll add it if the storm isn't as bad. I didn't know that was the case. So, keep your cool, be super friendly. These people, they didn't cancel your flight, they didn't cause the snowstorm or whatever, and, that's kind of the best way to kind of learn what your options are.
Yeah. And I'm just going to jump right into our news topic for this week because honestly, this bounces off of something we literally just talked about. There has been an increased demand for private shore excursions. And so this blew my mind for so many reasons because I always recommend that you do the excursions through the ship because I always
Right.
feel like it's safer. You have sort of a backup plan if you come back late or that something happens on your excursion, you're covered by the cruise line. But apparently, in the years post pandemic, there's just a huge uptick in people wanting to book their own thing. And I kind of get it on a couple of levels. I mean, obviously, post pandemic, you didn't want to be in a bus with 50 or
Right.
60 other people. You wanted to avoid being exposed to all of those germs. But going again to Europe next week with a whole bunch of people, it's a massive amount of money to book an
Yeah.
excursion for 7 people. The discounts to take little kids are not that big if they
Right.
discount it at all. So you could literally be taking an excursion with a family, 7 or 10 people if you're going with a group, and it's going to cost you 2 grand, but you could rent a private car for $800 or $900 to take you to the same place. So we have done kind of a hybrid when we go away next week. We have done some things that we booked through the cruise line, but when we've price to price compared other things, it just worked out better for our family to book our own car, not only because we do have 3 little kids and they're going to have, the opportunity to make a few more stops than if you had put them on a
Right.
bus or something
Right.
through the cruise line. It just, from that perspective, it absolutely makes sense. Am I not worried that we're going to miss the ship and be pier running from Limerick back to Cork? No, I think we're going to be okay, but I'm worried about it. Does this surprise you at all that people are doing this?
It doesn't really surprise me. And I think people, they like the personalized experiences. They like, being able to see what they want to see, or, maybe some of the excursions touch on some of what they want to see at the destination, but not everything. So I'm not surprised. But, it does bring to mind some of the things we talked about with excursions, which is, making sure they're reputable,
Yeah.
understanding that if you don't stop there, you may not get your money back, and that you are taking a risk. So there's a little bit more research, with the excursions that the cruise lines do, that they've vetted them. Now
Yeah.
you have to do your own vetting. But I think if you understand that, and especially if you're going with a large group, it makes a lot of sense.
It does. And, cruising is super in right now. Cruise ships are selling out. It's a very popular vacation. And if you are not like right at the start of when they're booking some of these excursions, they sell out. So your only option may be to book a private excursion. So just the volume of people on a ship now may make it so that you feel like you have to go to an outside company. But yeah, like you said, just be careful, vet everything, make sure
Yep.
you've got good reviews and watch your time and do all of the things we recommended in our prior episode.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wander and Chat. Be sure to review our podcast if you haven't already and to join our Facebook group. And join us next time when we are going to talk about traveling with food allergies.